I stood invisible at my wife's boss's party while she laughed at his jokes and pretended I didn't exist. 7 minutes after I walked out, her text destroyed everything. But what she didn't know was that his wife handed me a business card that night. Game on. My name is Jonathan Pierce. I'm 44 years old, and I've spent the last 15 years building a career in logistics consulting. I'm the guy who fixes broken supply chains, who finds efficiency where others see chaos. Ironic, really, considering I couldn't see the dysfunction in my own life until it was too late. The night everything changed started like any other corporate event. Gabriella, my wife of 3 years, had been buzzing about this rooftop party for weeks. Her boss, Richard Thornton, the chief communications officer at Meridian Pharmaceuticals, was hosting it at some upscale venue in downtown Chicago. Floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights, the whole 9 yards. You'll love it, John, Gabriella said that morning, checking her reflection in our bedroom mirror. She looked stunning in a navy dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. It's important people. Real networking. I should have caught the emphasis on real networking. Should have noticed she didn't say we'll love it. Just you'll. The elevator ride up to the 32nd floor felt longer than it should have. Gabriella checked her phone 3 times, her fingers dancing across the screen. I tried to make conversation about Owen, my 10-year-old son from my first marriage. He's doing great in math this semester, I said, smiling. Amanda says he might skip ahead next year. Gabriella nodded without looking up. That's nice. That's nice. 2 words that said absolutely nothing. The rooftop opened up before us like something out of a magazine spread. String lights crisscrossed overhead. A jazz trio played in one corner, and servers moved through the crowd with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The Chicago skyline glittered beyond the glass barriers, indifferent and beautiful. Gabriella transformed the moment we stepped inside. Her posture changed, her smile widened, and suddenly she was moving through the crowd like she owned the place. I followed, my hand briefly touching the small of her back before she drifted forward, leaving a gap between us that felt deliberate. Gabriella. A tall man in an expensive suit waved from near the bar. Richard Thornton. I recognized him from the company photos Gabriella showed me sometimes. She glided toward him, and I followed a step behind. When we reached him, Gabriella's laugh rang out, bright and performative. Richard, the view is absolutely breathtaking, Gabriella said, gesturing toward the windows. Richard smiled, his eyes lingering on her, just a fraction too long. Not as breathtaking as you look tonight, Gabriella. I stood there, waiting for her to introduce me. The pause stretched. Richard's eyes flickered toward me briefly, a question forming. This is Jonathan, Gabriella said finally, her voice flat, matter of fact. Not my husband Jonathan. Not my partner. Just Jonathan. Like I was an accessory she'd brought along and now regretted. Richard extended his hand. Nice to meet you. Are you with the catering company? The question hung in the air like a slap. I felt my face flush, but before I could respond, Gabriella laughed. Not a correction, not a clarification, just a light, airy laugh that said the mistake didn't matter enough to fix. Jonathan works in logistics, she said, already turning back to Richard. Works in logistics, like I deliver packages for a living. I'd spent 2 decades building expertise, consulting for Fortune 500 companies, but in that moment, I became invisible, and she let me disappear. The next hour was a masterclass in invisibility. I watched Gabriella work the room, her hand occasionally brushing Richard's arm, her laugh ringing out at jokes I couldn't hear. Every time I tried to join a conversation, she'd somehow guide the group away, leaving me standing alone with a sweating glass of champagne I didn't want. Around 10:30, my phone buzzed. Owen's name appeared on the screen. Dad. His voice was small, worried. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about the math test Monday. I stepped away from the crowd, finding a quieter corner near the elevator bank. Hey buddy, you've been studying all week. You're going to do great. But what if I forget everything? Owen said. I smiled despite everything. Remember what we practiced? Take a deep breath. Read the question twice, then write what you know. We talked for 10 minutes. He told me about a book he was reading, about his friend's new puppy, about nothing and everything. When we hung up, I felt lighter for the first time all night. Then I turned around and saw Gabriella watching me from across the room. Her expression wasn't warm or understanding. It was annoyed. She said something to Richard, who glanced my way with barely concealed disdain. That's when it hit me. She was embarrassed. Not concerned that our son was anxious. Not touched that he'd called his dad for comfort. Embarrassed that I'd taken a phone call at her important party. I walked back toward the group, but Gabriella had already moved to another cluster of executives. I stood at the edge, trying to find an opening, but the conversations flowed around me like I was a rock in a stream. A woman in a black dress approached the bar beside me. She was older, maybe 55, with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she missed nothing. "You look like you're having about as much fun as I am," she said, ordering a martini. I managed a weak smile. That obvious. She glanced across the room, toward where Richard stood, laughing with Gabriella and two other executives. "I'm Catherine Thornton," she said. "Richard's wife." My stomach dropped. "Jonathan Pierce," I said. "Gabriella's husband." Catherine's smile was knowing sad. I recognized that look. I wore it for 15 years before I finally hired a private investigator. She reached in her purse and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the bar. "Daniel Reeves. He's discreet, thorough, and he doesn't judge." I stared at the card without picking it up. "I don't think. You don't have to use it," Catherine said quietly. "But sometimes it helps to know the truth, whatever it might be." She picked up her martini and walked away. I looked across the room one more time. Gabriella's hand rested on Richard's forearm. She leaned in, saying something that made him throw his head back and laugh. His hand settled on her lower back, proprietary and familiar. My wife didn't even glance in my direction. I pocketed Catherine's card, set my untouched champagne on a passing tray, and walked to the elevator. No goodbyes, no explanations. I just left. The street outside was cooler, honest. The night air cleared my head as I walked 3 blocks to the parking garage. I didn't look back at the glowing tower. Didn't need to. My phone was in my hand when I reached my car. 10:47 p.m. At 10:54 it buzzed. Gabriella's name lit up the screen. "Where did you go?" For words. Not "Are you okay?" Not "Is everything all right?" Just accusation dressed as a question. I read it twice, then put the phone face down in the cup holder. I started the engine and drove home in silence, and something inside me that had been bending for 3 years finally straightened. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my home office desk with a legal pad and started making lists. Not angry lists, not emotional lists. Just facts, numbers, actions. By 3 in the morning, I had a clear picture of our shared life, and more importantly, how to untangle myself from it. The apartment lease was in my name only. Gabriella had moved in after we got married, but I'd never added her to the paperwork. She'd been too busy with work to care about administrative details. That oversight was about to matter. Our bank accounts were separate except for one joint checking we used for household expenses. I've been depositing my share every month like clockwork. The balance showed $4,200. I transferred $2,100 to my personal account. Exactly half. Fair and clean. The car she drove, a leased BMW she'd insisted on, was in her name. Her problem now. At 6 in the morning, I started packing. Not frantically, not dramatically. Methodically. My clothes, my books, my laptop, the framed photo of Owen from his last birthday. The coffee maker I'd brought from my previous place. The set of tools in the garage. Everything that was mine, nothing that wasn't. By 9, my car was loaded. I'd rented a storage unit 2 weeks ago, right after the party, after spending a sleepless night thinking about Catherine Thornton's sad, knowing smile. Some part of me had been preparing for this longer than I wanted to admit. I left Gabriella's things exactly where they were. Her expensive skincare products in the bathroom, her designer bags in the closet, her laptop on the kitchen counter. I even left the keys to the apartment on the dining room table, along with a single piece of paper. The note was brief. "Lease is in my name. You have 30 days to find new housing per standard notice requirements. Utilities will be transferred out of my name, effective immediately. The joint account has been split evenly. Take care of yourself. No accusations. No drama. Just information." I call the utility companies for my car. Electric, gas, water, internet. All transferred solely to my name, with a termination date of 30 days out. I wasn't cutting her off immediately, wasn't trying to make her life impossible. I was just removing myself from her infrastructure. The leasing office opened at 10. I walked in and spoke with the property manager, a efficient woman named Mrs. Alvarez who'd always been professional. I need to provide official notice that my tenant will be vacating in 30 days, I said. Mrs. Alvarez pulled up the file. Just to confirm, Gabriella Pierce is not listed on the lease, correct? Correct, I said. It's my apartment. I'm the sole leaseholder. She nodded, made a note. We'll need that in writing. I handed her the letter I'd printed that morning. She read it, stamped it, filed it. You'll receive confirmation by email within 24 hours. By noon, I was at the storage facility, unloading boxes. My phone had been buzzing all morning. Gabriella's name appeared repeatedly. I didn't answer, didn't decline, just let them ring into voicemail. At 1 p.m., I drove to Amanda's house. My ex-wife answered the door with a concerned expression. "Jonathan, you look exhausted," Amanda said, stepping aside to let me in. "Can we talk?" I asked. We sat in her living room while Owen was at a friend's house. I told her everything. The party, the dismissal, Catherine Thornton, my decision to end things with Gabriella. Amanda listened without interruption. When I finished, she reached across and squeezed my hand. "You're doing the right thing," Amanda said quietly. "Owen's been worried about you lately. He's perceptive, you know. He could tell something was wrong. I never wanted him to see me accept being treated like that," I said. "And now he won't," Amanda said. "You're showing him what self-respect looks like." That evening, I checked into an extended stay hotel. Clean, quiet, temporary. I sat on the bed and finally looked at my phone. 14 missed calls. 8 text messages. The messages escalated from confusion to anger. "Why aren't you answering? This is ridiculous. We need to talk about this like adults. You're being childish." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I opened my laptop and started researching divorce attorneys. Not because I was angry, because I was done. Monday morning, I called the number on the business card Catherine Thornton had given me. Daniel Reeves answered on the second ring, his voice professional and neutral. "Mr. Reeves, my name is Jonathan Pierce. Catherine Thornton recommended you." "I remember Catherine," Reeves said. "What can I help you with?" "We met at a coffee shop in Evanston, away from my usual haunts." Reeves was in his 50s, gray-haired, with the kind of face that could blend into any crowd. He ordered black coffee and got straight to business. "You want to know if your wife is having an affair?" Reeves said. It wasn't a question. "I want to know the truth," I said. "Whatever that is." Reeves pulled out a tablet. "I'll need some basic information. Her full name, place of employment, typical schedule, vehicle description." I provided everything. Gabriella's work address at Meridian Pharmaceuticals, her usual hours, the BMW she drove, Richard Thornton's name and position. "This will take about 2 weeks, Reeves said. "Standard surveillance, documentation, pattern analysis. My rate is $200 an hour plus expenses. I'll send you daily updates, photos when relevant, and a comprehensive report at the end." I didn't hesitate. "Do it." We shook hands and he left. I sat in a coffee shop for another hour, staring at my phone. Still nothing from me to Gabriella. 12 more messages from her, each one more demanding than the last. The final one, sent at midnight the night before, was different. "I know you're upset, but this is extreme. Can we please just talk?" I almost responded, almost fell back into the pattern of explaining myself, of making her understand. Then I remembered her hand on Richard's arm, her embarrassed glance when Owen called, the way she'd introduced me like I was nobody. I deleted the message and ordered another coffee. That afternoon, my phone rang. Not Gabriella this time. "Amanda." "Jonathan." Gabriella showed up at my office. Amanda said, her voice tense. My stomach dropped. "What?" "She wanted to know where you were." She was upset, almost frantic. I told her I couldn't discuss your whereabouts and that she needed to leave. "I'm sorry she bothered you," I said. "Don't apologize." "But Jonathan," she mentioned something about the apartment. "Said you'd locked her out." "I didn't lock her out," I said carefully. "I gave her official notice. 30 days, exactly as required by law. She has full access until then." Amanda was quiet for a moment. "She's spinning this as you abandoning her. Just be aware." That evening, I received an email from Gabriella's work account. The subject line read, "We need to talk immediately." I opened it. "Jonathan, I don't understand what's happening. You disappeared from the party without saying goodbye. You won't answer my calls, and now I find out you're kicking me out of our home? This isn't like you." Whatever I did to upset you, I'm sorry. But you can't just shut me out like this. We're married. We need to communicate. I read it 3 times. The words were careful, calculated. Not, I'm sorry for ignoring you. Not, I'm sorry for being embarrassed by you. Just a vague apology that admitted nothing. I typed a response and deleted it. Typed another and deleted that too. Finally, I wrote, Gabriella, I've given you legal notice regarding the apartment. All utilities remain active for the next 30 days. The joint account has been divided equally. My attorney will be in contact regarding next steps. Please direct all future communication through legal channels. Professional. Clean. Final. I hit send and closed the laptop. My phone rang immediately. Gabriella's name flashing. I let it go to voicemail, then another, then another. Around 10 p.m., the call stopped. A single text came through. You're going to regret this. I stared at those 6 words for a long time. Not a plea, not an apology, a threat. I screenshot the message, saved it to a folder labeled documentation, and went to bed. The audit had begun. Daniel Reeves was nothing if not thorough. His first report arrived 48 hours after our meeting, delivered through an encrypted email with a password-protected attachment. I opened it in my hotel room, coffee going cold beside my laptop. The surveillance had started Monday morning. Gabriella left our apartment at 7:30, drove to Meridian Pharmaceuticals, parked in her assigned spot. Normal workday behavior. But at 11:45, she left the building with Richard Thornton. They drove separately to the Grayson Hotel downtown. Reeves had timestamp photos. Gabriella entering the lobby at 12:07 p.m. Richard following at 12:09 p.m. Both of them exiting at 2:43 p.m. Gabriella's hair was different, messier. Richard's tie was loosened. Tuesday showed the same pattern. Wednesday too. 3 days, 3 hotels, always during lunch hours that stretched well into the afternoon. Thursday's report included something new. Financial records that Reeves had obtained through methods I didn't ask about. Gabriella had a credit card I'd never seen, issued 6 months ago. The statements showed regular charges, hotels, restaurants, a jewelry store where she'd spent $3,400 on a men's watch 2 weeks before the party. I'd never received a watch. The report concluded with Reeves's professional assessment. Subject exhibits consistent pattern of clandestine meetings with Richard Thornton during work hours. Behavior consistent with ongoing extramarital affair. Estimated duration, 6 to 8 months based on financial records and observed familiarity. I sat back, staring at the screen. Part of me had hoped I was wrong, that Catherine Thornton's warning was just the projection of her own painful experience. But the evidence was clinical, undeniable, and it hurt less than I expected. Maybe I'd already done my grieving at that party, standing invisible while my wife laughed at another man's jokes. I forwarded everything to my attorney with a brief note. Please advise on next steps. His response came within the hour. This changes things. We can file on grounds of adultery if you prefer, though Michigan allows no fault. Either way, this strengthens your position considerably regarding asset division. I'll draft papers. That evening, Owen called. Just a regular check-in, telling me about his day at school, asking if I'd be at his parent-teacher conference next week. Wouldn't miss it, I said. How are you doing, buddy? Really? Owen was quiet for a moment. Mom said you and Gabriella are having problems. Amanda and I had agreed to be honest with him in age-appropriate ways. We are, I said carefully. Sometimes adults realize they're not right for each other. But that doesn't change anything about you and me. You know that, right? I know, Owen said. Dad, I didn't really like Gabriella that much anyway. She was always weird when I visited. The honesty in his voice broke something in me. I'm sorry you felt that way. It's okay. I like it better when it's just us. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of the hotel room and let myself feel it. Not anger, not betrayal exactly. Just sadness for the time wasted, the red flags ignored, the self-respect I'd pawned for the illusion of a happy marriage. My phone buzzed. Gabriella, again. The messages had continued all week, oscillating between anger and manipulation. This is ridiculous. You're throwing away our marriage over nothing. Richard is just a colleague. You're being paranoid. Fine. Keep ignoring me. But you'll realize you made a mistake. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Amanda. Jonathan. She sounded concerned. Everything okay? Can you do me a favor? I asked. Next time Gabriella contacts you, can you tell her that all communication needs to go through attorneys? I'm going to send you my lawyer's contact information. Of course, Amanda said. Has something happened? I have proof, I said simply. She's been having an affair with her boss. Multiple hotels, several months. My investigator documented everything. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, Jonathan. I know that doesn't make it easier. Actually, I said, it does. It makes everything very clear. Friday morning, Reeves sent another update. Gabriella and Richard had met at a different hotel, the Riverside Inn. But this time, Reeves had captured something else. Catherine Thornton, sitting in the hotel bar, watching them leave together. She'd seen her husband with my wife, and the expression on her face in the photograph was one of grim vindication. I called Reeves immediately. Does Catherine know you're working for me? No, Reeves said, and I won't tell her unless you authorize it. But Mr. Pierce, I think she's conducting her own investigation. She's hired someone too. The pieces were falling into place. Catherine wasn't just a scorned wife offering advice to a stranger. She was building her own case, and Gabriella and Richard had walked right into both traps. Keep me updated, I said. Will do. One more thing. You should know that this afternoon, Gabriella was called into a meeting with HR. I don't know the details, but she left the building at 3 p.m. and went straight to a lawyer's office on Michigan Avenue. So it was starting. The walls were closing in. That evening, my phone rang. Not Gabriella this time. Catherine Thornton. Mr. Pierce, she said, her voice steady and professional. I hope you don't mind. I got your number from Daniel Reeves. I thought we should talk. We met at a quiet restaurant in Oak Park, far from both our usual circles. Catherine was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a glass of red wine and an expression that suggested she'd been preparing for this conversation for a long time. Thank you for meeting me, Catherine said as I slid into the booth across from her. I imagine this is as awkward for you as it is for me. Different kind of awkward, I said. You've been through this before. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Twice, actually. Richard's first affair was 7 years ago. I forgave him then. Believe his promises about counseling and change. She took a sip of wine. The second was 3 years ago. I stopped believing him, but stayed anyway. For the kids, for the lifestyle, for a dozen stupid reasons. What changed? I asked. I turned 55 last month, Catherine said, and I realized I'd spent 15 years being humiliated by a man who thinks he's entitled to whatever he wants. I'm done being understanding. A waiter appeared, and I ordered coffee, needing something to do with my hands. Daniel told me you hired him too, Catherine said once the waiter left. I hope you don't mind that I asked. I want to make sure we weren't working at cross purposes. We're not, I said. We want the same thing. The truth documented. Exactly. Catherine pulled a folder from her purse. I've been gathering evidence for 3 months. Financial records, text messages I recovered from Richard's old phone, witness statements from people who've seen them together. She slid the folder across the table. This is a copy. My attorney suggested we might want to coordinate. I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements showing transfers from Richard's personal account to Gabriella's secret credit card. Hotel receipts going back 8 months. Text message screenshots that were explicit enough to leave no doubt. One message from Richard made my jaw tighten. Can't wait to get you away from that boring husband of yours. He has no idea what he's missing. Gabriella's response. He's too focused on his little spreadsheets to notice anything. Trust me, he's clueless. I closed the folder carefully. How'd you get these? Richard is arrogant, Catherine said. He thinks he's smarter than everyone else. He kept an old phone in his desk drawer at home. Didn't even password protect it. She leaned back. The thing about serial cheaters, Mr. Pierce, they get sloppy because they never face real consequences. Call me Jonathan, I said. Catherine, she replied. And Jonathan, I want to propose something. My attorney is filing for divorce next week. He's also filing a complaint with Meridian's ethics board about Richard's relationship with a subordinate. Company policy explicitly forbids supervisors from engaging in romantic relationships with direct reports. I processed that. Gabriella reports to Richard indirectly. He's the CCO. She's a manager in his division. Close enough for the ethics policy to apply. Catherine's smile was sharp now. Richard's facing termination. Gabriella will likely be forced to resign to avoid her own investigation. and both of them are about to lose their comfortable positions. That's thorough, I said. I'm not interested in revenge, Catherine said. I'm interested in consequences. There's a difference. Our server brought my coffee, and I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. What do you need from me? Coordination, Catherine said. My attorney files the ethics complaint on Monday. Your investigator has photos and documentation that corroborate the timeline. If we submit everything together, Meridian won't be able to sweep it under the rug. They'll have to act. I thought about Gabriella's text messages, her casual dismissal of me as boring and clueless. I thought about Richard's smirk at the party when he asked if I was with the catering company. I'm in, I said. Catherine pulled out her phone. I'll have my attorney contact yours. We'll coordinate the filing. We spent the next hour comparing notes, building a timeline, ensuring our evidence packets complemented each other. By the time we finished, I had a clear picture of the affair's progression. It had started at a company retreat 8 months ago, became physical within weeks, and had been sustained through a combination of arrogance and carelessness. As we prepared to leave, Catherine touched my arm. Jonathan, can I give you some advice? Please, don't let this make you bitter, she said. I did that after Richard's first affair, and it poisoned years of my life. What they did says everything about them and nothing about you. Remember that. I nodded, feeling the weight of her experience. Thank you, Catherine. One more thing, she said, a hint of steel in her voice. When this all comes down next week, they're going to try to spin it. Make themselves victims, blame us for being vindictive. Don't engage. Let the evidence speak. I can do that, I said. We parted ways in the parking lot. As I drove back to my hotel, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not happiness exactly, but a sense of order being restored. The chaos of the last month was resolving into clear lines of action and consequence. My phone buzzed as I pulled into the hotel parking lot. Daniel Reeves. Update. Subject and Richard Thornton met at her apartment this evening. He left at 9:47 p.m. Appeared agitated. Suggest preparing for escalation. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to my attorney with a note. They know something's coming. Let them know. Let them panic. I was done being the clueless husband. Monday morning arrived with the precision of a controlled demolition. Catherine's attorney filed the ethics complaint with Meridian Pharmaceuticals at 9 a.m. sharp. My attorney submitted the supporting documentation 30 minutes later. By 10:15, both Richard Thornton and Gabriella Pierce were summoned to separate meetings with HR and the company's legal team. Daniel Reeves sent me updates throughout the day, his messages clinical and precise. 9:47 a.m. Subject arrived at Meridian offices, appeared normal. 10:23 a.m. Subject called to HR, left desk visibly shaken. 11:15 a.m. Subject exited HR meeting. Observed crying in vehicle for 12 minutes. 12:40 p.m. Subject drove to Richard Thornton's residence. Remained inside for 47 minutes. I sat in my hotel room, watching the timeline unfold like a freight train I'd set in motion months ago. There was no satisfaction in it, just the quiet recognition that consequences had finally caught up to actions. My attorney called at 2 p.m. His voice was professional, but I could hear the hint of approval underneath. Jonathan, Meridian's legal team, just contacted me. They want to arrange a meeting. Apparently, both Richard and Gabriella have been placed on immediate administrative leave, pending a full investigation. How long will the investigation take? I asked. In cases this clear-cut, 2 weeks, maybe 3. The evidence you and Mrs. Thornton provided is comprehensive. They can't sweep this under the rug even if they wanted to. He paused. There's something else. Gabriella's attorney reached out. She wants to negotiate a settlement. She wants to avoid a contested divorce, I said. Exactly. She's realizing that going to trial means all of this becomes public record. The affair, the financial deception, everything. Her attorney is suggesting a mediated settlement. I thought about that. About sitting across a table from Gabriella, watching her try to negotiate her way out of the mess she'd created. Tell her attorney I'll consider mediation, I said. But I want full financial disclosure first. Every account, every credit card, every asset. No more secrets. I'll communicate that, my attorney said. One more thing. Catherine Thornton's attorney mentioned that Richard is also facing potential termination. Apparently, this isn't his first ethics violation. The company has been looking for a reason to push him out. After we hung up, I called Owen. Amanda answered first. Jonathan, how are you holding up? Amanda asked, her voice gentle. I'm okay. Can I talk to Owen? She put him on speaker. His voice came through bright and unconcerned. Hi, Dad. Guess what? I got an A on my math test. That's fantastic, buddy. I knew you would. We talked about school, about his upcoming soccer game, about normal things that felt like breathing clean air after being underwater. When we hung up, I felt grounded again, reminded of what actually mattered. That evening, Gabriella finally tried calling instead of texting. I let it ring through to voicemail. Her message was 7 minutes long, oscillating between anger and desperate justification. Jonathan, this is insane. You've ruined my career over nothing. Richard and I were just friends, and now, because of your paranoia, we're both facing termination. Do you have any idea what you've done? I could lose everything because you couldn't handle me having a professional relationship with my boss. This is vindictive and cruel, and I hope you're proud of yourself. Not once did she admit to the affair. Not once did she acknowledge the hotels, the hidden credit card, the lies. It was all my fault for being paranoid, for overreacting, for not understanding that her relationship with Richard was purely professional. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to my attorney with a note. She's still denying everything despite the photographic evidence. His response was immediate. Good. Let her keep lying. Makes our case stronger. Tuesday brought more updates from Reeves. Gabriella had been to 3 different attorneys' offices, presumably shopping for someone who would tell her what she wanted to hear. Richard had cleaned out his desk at Meridian under security escort. Catherine had filed formal divorce papers. Wednesday morning, I received an email from Meridian's HR director requesting a meeting to discuss matters related to Mrs. Gabriella Pierce's employment. I forwarded it to my attorney, who advised me to decline. You're not employed by Meridian, he said. You have no obligation to participate in their internal investigation. Let them sort out their own mess. But Thursday brought something unexpected. A letter, hand-delivered to my hotel, from Richard Thornton himself. The envelope was expensive stationery, the kind that suggested old money and entitlement. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Mr. Pierce, I understand you believe I've wronged you. Perhaps in some technical sense, I have. But you must understand that what Gabriella and I share goes beyond the conventional boundaries of marriage. We connected on an intellectual level you could never provide her. She deserves someone who challenges her, who matches her ambition. You are holding her back, and deep down, you must know that. I'm offering you a gentleman's solution. Withdraw your complaint to Meridian, convince Catherine to do the same, and I'll ensure Gabriella treats you fairly in the divorce. Otherwise, I have resources you can't imagine. I will make this process very difficult for you. I read it 3 times, each time feeling my anger cool into something harder and clearer. He was threatening me, actually threatening me, while simultaneously justifying the affair as some kind of intellectual romance. The arrogance was breathtaking. I photographed the letter, front and back, then immediately sent it to my attorney, to Catherine's attorney, and to Reeves. My attorney called within minutes. Jonathan, this is witness intimidation, possibly even extortion. I'm forwarding this to Meridian's legal team immediately. Do it, I said. Catherine called an hour later. I just saw the letter Richard sent you. That pompous fool just handed us everything we need. He thinks he's untouchable, I said. He did, Catherine replied. Past tense. By tomorrow morning, Meridian's board will have this letter. Richard's employment there is over. She was right. Friday afternoon, Reeves confirmed that Richard Thornton had been terminated for cause. No severance, no references, just a security escort and a ban from company property. Gabriella was given a choice: resign immediately with a neutral reference, or face termination with cause. She chose resignation. By Friday evening, both of them were unemployed, facing divorce proceedings, and watching their carefully constructed lives crumble. And I felt nothing but relief that I was no longer part of their story. The mediation was scheduled for the following Tuesday at a conference room downtown. Gabriella's attorney had pushed for it, emphasizing the benefits of keeping everything private and civil. I arrived 15 minutes early with my attorney, Marcus Brennan. The conference room was all glass and modern furniture, designed to feel neutral and professional. Gabriella and her attorney, a sharp-looking woman named Patricia Valdez, were already there. This was the first time I'd seen Gabriella since the party. She looked smaller, somehow diminished. The confidence she'd worn like armor was gone, replaced by something brittle and defensive. She wouldn't meet my eyes. We sat across from each other, attorneys flanking us like seconds at a duel. Patricia opened. "Thank you all for coming. I think we can reach an amicable settlement if we approach this reasonably. My client is willing to." "Let's start with full financial disclosure," Marcus interrupted smoothly. "As we requested last week." Patricia slid a folder across the table. "Everything's here. Bank statements, credit card records, investment accounts." Marcus opened it, reviewing the documents with practiced efficiency. I watched Gabriella, who was staring at the table like it might offer escape. "There's a discrepancy," Marcus said after a few minutes. "The credit card ending in 7743. It shows significant charges, but I don't see corresponding statements." Patricia glanced at Gabriella, who shifted uncomfortably. "That card was closed 2 weeks ago," Gabriella said quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken, and her voice was different, smaller. "The final statement should be there." "It's not," Marcus said. "And according to our investigation, that card had a balance of over $18,000. Charges dating back 8 months. Hotels, restaurants, jewelry, none of which benefited the marriage." Gabriella's face flushed. "Those were business expenses." "The Grayson Hotel at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday isn't a business expense, Gabriella," I said quietly. "Neither is a $3,000 watch you gave to Richard Thornton." She finally looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before: shame. "Jonathan," she started. "Don't," I said, my voice even. "I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to divide assets fairly and end this marriage. That's all." Patricia cleared her throat. "My client is willing to waive any claim to the apartment, the furniture, and the joint savings in exchange for keeping her personal vehicle and her retirement account." Marcus looked at me. I nodded. It was more than fair. I wanted nothing she touched. "Agreed," Marcus said. "But we're requesting reimbursement for the marital funds spent on the affair. Based on credit card statements, that's approximately $18,000. "That's excessive," Patricia protested. "It's documented," Marcus countered, sliding copies of the credit card statements across the table. "Every charge is itemized. Hotels, gifts for a paramour, meals, all paid for with money that should have gone to household expenses." Gabriella's attorney reviewed the documents, her expression tightening. She leaned over and whispered something to Gabriella, who nodded reluctantly. "We'll agree to reimbursement of $12,000, paid in installments over 12 months, Patricia said. "Full amount, paid within 90 days, or we go to trial," Marcus said. "And in trial, all of this becomes public record, including the affair, the ethics violations, and the reasons for her termination from Meridian." Gabriella actually flinched at that. I realized then how much she'd been counting on keeping this quiet, on salvaging some version of her reputation. "Fine," Gabriella said, her voice breaking slightly. 18,000. 90 days. The rest of the mediation was mechanical. Division of assets, timeline for apartment vacating, agreement on no spousal support from either party. It took 2 hours to dissolve 3 years of marriage into line items and signatures. As we prepared to leave, Gabriella finally spoke directly to me. "Jonathan, I know you won't believe me, but I never meant to hurt you." I looked at her for a long moment, at the woman I'd thought I'd spend my life with, now a stranger wearing familiar features. "You're right, Gabriella," I said quietly. "I don't believe you, but it doesn't matter anymore. You made your choices, and they had consequences. That's all this is." I walked out without looking back. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I signed a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment in Evanston, close to Owen's school. It wasn't fancy, but it had good light, a decent kitchen, and a second bedroom where Owen could keep his things for our weekends together. Amanda helped me move in, along with her husband, Tom. We'd all become friends through this process, proof that divorce didn't have to mean warfare. "This place suits you," Amanda said, arranging books on a shelf. "It feels like you." She was right. After years of living in spaces that reflected Gabriella's taste, I'd chosen simple furniture, neutral colors, and function over form. It felt honest. Owen bounded in from his new bedroom. "Dad, can we paint my room blue?" "Absolutely. We'll go pick out the color this weekend." My consulting business had picked up considerably. Word had spread through professional networks that I was available for independent projects, and my calendar was filling with logistics assessments and supply chain redesigns. I'd even been invited to speak at a conference in Denver next month. Catherine Thornton and I had stayed in touch. She'd finalized her own divorce and was already traveling, making up for years spent waiting for Richard to change. She sent me a postcard from Greece. Freedom looks beautiful from here. One afternoon, I got a call from Daniel Reeves. Jonathan, thought you want to know. Richard Thornton filed for bankruptcy last week. Legal fees, divorce settlement, loss of income. He's selling his house. And Gabriella? I asked. Working retail at a department store in Schaumburg, living with her parents in the suburbs. I felt no satisfaction in that, just a quiet acknowledgement that actions had consequences. That evening, Owen and I made dinner together in my new kitchen. Spaghetti, his favorite. As we ate, he said, Dad, you seem happier now. Like really happy. I am, buddy. I really am. Good. You deserve it. Out of the mouths of 10-year-olds came wisdom I was still learning. The following week, I attended the parent-teacher conference at Owen's school. Amanda was there too, and we sat together listening to his teacher praise his math skills and his kindness to other students. Afterward, walking to our cars, Amanda said, You know, I'm proud of how you handled everything. You could have been bitter, vindictive, but you stayed focused on what mattered. I had good examples, I said, nodding toward her. We showed each other it was possible to do this with dignity. That night, alone in my apartment, I sat on the couch with a glass of wine and thought about the last 6 months. The pain of that rooftop party felt distant now, like something that happened to a different version of me. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd gained something more valuable. Clarity about who I was and what I wouldn't accept. I'd learned that being quiet didn't mean being weak, and that walking away from toxicity was its own kind of strength. My phone buzzed. An email from the Denver conference organizers, confirming my keynote speech on systematic approaches to operational efficiency. I smiled and started outlining my presentation. The future was opening up in ways I couldn't have imagined 6 months ago, and I was ready for it. 8 months later, I stood backstage at the Chicago Convention Center, adjusting my tie before my presentation at the National Logistics Summit. 300 supply chain professionals were waiting to hear about the streamlining methodologies I'd developed. Owen was in the audience with Amanda and Tom. He'd asked to come, wanted to see what his dad did for work. The pride in his voice when he'd asked had made everything worthwhile. The presentation went smoothly. I spoke about identifying inefficiencies, about having the courage to cut what wasn't working, about building systems that serve their purpose rather than just existing. The metaphors weren't lost on me. During the Q&A, a woman in the front row asked, What's the hardest part of your work? I thought about that. Convincing people that starting over isn't failure. Sometimes the most efficient thing you can do is acknowledge a system is broken and build something new. Afterward, several companies approached me about consulting contracts. I collected business cards, scheduled follow-up calls, and felt the satisfaction of being valued for my actual expertise. Owen ran up as I was packing my materials. Dad, that was so cool. You were like a professor or something. I ruffled his hair. Just explaining what I do, buddy. Well, you're really good at it. That evening, Amanda invited me to dinner at their house. It was casual, comfortable, the kind of co-parenting relationship I'd once thought impossible. As I was leaving, Amanda walked me to my car. Jonathan, I've been meaning to say something. Watching you rebuild your life this year, the way you've handled everything with Owen, the success you're having professionally, I'm genuinely happy for you. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. Tom and I were talking. If you ever want to join us for holidays, family dinners, whatever, you're welcome. Owen would love it, and honestly, so would we. I felt something warm settle in my chest. I'd like that. Driving home, I thought about Gabriella, wondered briefly if she'd found any peace. I hoped she had, not for my sake, but because carrying bitterness would only poison my own life. My phone rang as I pulled into my parking spot. Catherine Thornton, calling from somewhere in Italy. Jonathan, how did the presentation go? Really well. Several new clients interested. That's wonderful. Listen, I'm organizing a small business retreat here in Tuscany next spring. Professionals who've rebuilt after major life transitions. Would you be interested in speaking? Absolutely. I said without hesitation. After we hung up, I sat in my car for a moment, looking up at my apartment building. Lights glowing in windows, people living their lives, moving forward. I thought about that rooftop party, about standing invisible while my wife pretended I didn't exist, about the text message 7 minutes after I left, asking where I'd gone like I was an inconvenience. That moment had destroyed everything, just like the preview promised. But what it destroyed was an illusion. And what rose from those ruins was something real, something built on self-respect and honest relationships. I grabbed my briefcase and headed inside. Owen was coming over this weekend. We'd finish painting his room and maybe catch a baseball game. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility, and I was walking into it with my eyes wide open.